Barry, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure.
I've been really looking forward to this. Tell me, who is Barry Hearn OBE?
Multinational genius, super smart.
I'm not disputing it.
Best bodyguard in the business. Secret of life. Make sure you look after those that are close to you. Family first, of course. Friends second. Be prepared to take a bullet for them and give 100% commitment to everything you do. No retreat, no surrender.
Brilliant. We can stop there.
It's
just golden.
over.
I know so much from knowing what you've done, listening to things and watching these before, including this TV program you've got coming up.
Yeah.
I was listening to your podcast. You've just got so much energy. You've got a glint in your eye now.
Yeah, I know, because I'm so happy, you see. I mean, I know, we live in a troubled world. We live in a world. And when you're doing sports events, it's the same things. The ultimate is to give people escapism into another world where they're having fun. And fun seems to be something that, money can buy you most things. It can't buy you fun. That sheer enjoyment of what you do, breathing God's air, living your life to the full, not wasting 1 second. My father had 6 heart attacks from 28 to 43 and died at 43. His father died at 44 and his father died at 43.
You're going to be 77 in June.
Because I'm a phenomenon. But the only lesson that taught me was, don't waste. The only thing my father ever told me that made any sense at all was, don't waste a second. Life's too. So you mustn't, we have to take things seriously at certain times. But the ideal aim is to take life not so seriously. At the end of the day, it's a very trite phrase that, we're just going through a period of time that starts in tears of happiness and ends in tears of sadness. The bit in the middle is what interests me.
What do you do for fun? Because you've
Work.
mixed. Interesting. And a key part of what you've done is storytelling.
Yeah.
And by doing storytelling, you're having fun. You've created characters along the way, characters that have then built
It goes back
foundations.
a little bit further than that, you see. When I looked at different aspects of the sports scene especially, is I realised that some people with blazers on take sport too seriously. It is, for some people, it's a living, but for most of us, it's an enjoyment, a passion, a pastime. So what we're doing is we're trying to create a soap opera within a sport. So we used to describe it as snooker was Dallas with balls, darts is Coronation Street with arrows. The most important thing is the storytelling involves getting people to understand, to recognise, to identify with certain characters in this soap opera. So personality-driven sport is the most important thing to ensure longevity, because inevitably, you always remember the first football side you ever watched, the whole of your life. And generally that side will be your team for the rest of your life. Similarly in our world is, we have to draw people in by way of identification with personalities or people that are starring in certain sports.
And so there was an element of you pioneering something that certainly wasn't being done in the UK.
Yeah, you're being a bit too kind. I'm a little bit more restrictive than that. See, I'm working class. The fact that I've made an inordinate amount of money is neither here nor there. It's okay, but don't change my life. My values are still working class. So, as I said to my son the other day, who is obviously a different class, I'm very much in love with him, he's a brilliant guy. I said, if I ever see you walk past a £10 note on the floor, I'll cut you out of my will. So you've got to understand where you come from. You've got to understand your own frailties, which we've all got. You've got to live with those, but in trying to improve yourself every day. William Gladstone said on his deathbed, I have been a learner all my life. I think he was 88. I understand what he says now. I learn something every day about people, about business, about life. And it fascinates me, the evolution of that during your own years on this earth. But what you all know is, we're all dealing with something very limited. So you've got to be passionate about it. When you're passionate, work does not become work. It becomes a way of life. My wife will tell you, I'm a sad. Why? Because I alter my ratings on snooker and darts every single match live by hand. She says that's sad. I say, you watch EastEnders. I can't think of anything sadder. We are involved, we're immersed in our life and our business, and we have a dream just to be one simple thing: be the best you can be. So I like fighting people, not now, I'm getting a bit old, I like playing sport, and I'm not necessarily very good. But in everything I do, I aim just to be the best I can be. And whatever it is, God will decide, not me.
And there's so much that you've done, and there's so much that you're still doing.
Yeah.
And of course, there's Eddie with the legacy side of things now, and I know how proud you are of him. You can feel that. And of course, proud of what you've been able to do to have that sort of platform, if you like, for him to come in and then steer.
Yeah,
but what have you not done? Is there anything that, because it feels like you're, in a non-arrogant way, you're very content, but still driven. But is there anything you haven't achieved that you'd like to?
I have a compartment in my brain. So all my failures, all my disappointments are compartmentalised in an area that I never revisit. I don't set impossible
Really interesting
targets.
mindset. So you just shut the door.
Shut the door. It doesn't happen. Someone dies. It doesn't happen. They never exist.
Did that take time to manage? Was there a younger version of Barry where you open the door and shut it open short? Now you just shut it?
I think I was always like that. You see, I'm very realistic as well. So if I can't change anything, and none of us can change our past, I don't try to change anything because it's a total waste of time. And working back again, time is the only thing I can't afford to waste. So why bother to go things where you can't have an effect on it? You can learn by those experiences, of course, but you don't dwell on them because there's no point. You know, I always remember when people close to me die, I'm sad they're dead, but I don't think about them the second afterwards. Their journey's ended, they've moved, they've finished. They can't affect my life. I must move on.
That's interesting. And you could almost call that selfish, but actually what's wrong with that? And also I love the unashamed amount sort of you talk about of being successful, making money, when particularly in Britain, it's a very much a sort of like, you know, it's not the done thing, but actually how we're all aspirational, we're all ambitious, but some people don't like to hear.
It's only part of the journey, isn't it? I mean, I grew up only wanting money. I didn't want anything else. So my dad was a bus driver, my mum was a domestic cleaner. Dad was ill all his life till he died. We had no money. I was never unhappy. Children don't get unhappy. You know, if they have love around them and they have parental guidance, some of the things that's missing in today's society, most of their problems are caused by, in my view, lack of parental guidance, for whatever reason or the other. But as I looked around me, I was never envious, but I saw things I wanted and I couldn't quite understand why we didn't have them. You know, I was 18 years on a council estate, never saw a tree. What do I do now? I buy farms now. I like trees. They don't make any money, but I walk around and I feel good about myself. And feeling good about yourself is half the battle. Now, it helps if you're selfish. It definitely helps. So growing up, I look at my age, looking back on it, I probably wasn't the best father and I definitely wasn't the best husband because I had a mission I was on to become financially secure. And I was blindfolded. When you're talking about trying to be a success, I try and put across to kids today especially is, there's no barriers to what you can achieve. The only barriers live within you. Are you prepared to live that type of life and be a bit of a you know? And we go through these 3 stages of life. The first stage of an entrepreneurial life is focus, success, deal with everything and anybody that gets in your way.
Fighter.
Whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
Whatever you got to do. I don't want to hurt anyone unless they're trying to hurt me. And then there's no rules. It's like coming into your family, you know. So then you come to a stage where you achieve a little bit of that and you sort of chill just slightly. And then you become a better husband and a better father and a better person, probably. Then you come to the 3rd stage of your life, you think, job's over. What do I do now? So you start planning legacy.
And that's the phase you're in.
And that's the phase I'm in.
Because there's no
now.
retirement for you, right?
No.
I mean, you'll always be working on something and doing something because it's what stimulates you.
It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. I mean, the beauty of my life at the moment is I probably get up when I wake up. You know, I don't do the 5 o'clock starts in the morning, only very occasionally.
What do you do? Because you're in good shape. You've got a proper twinkle in your eye and you look fit. So what have you got a morning routine?
Yeah.
What works for you?
Well, I've got a routine of life, but I don't like boundaries and I don't like to limit myself. So if you start off by saying there's 24 hours in a day, I like to sleep. You know, so I'll always have 8 hours at least.
You prioritise that?
Yeah, because it relaxes me. But when I wake up, my pulse, except I've actually put a pulse meter on to check this. So my pulse goes up 5 or 6 beats as I arrive at my office.
So almost like you're preparing, you're ready.
And when I'm going home, it goes up 5 or 6 going home, because it's another part of your life. So it's quite regulated, but it's not boring. And I can't stand boredom. So I have to be doing things and having ideas. And, you know, listen, as I say, the compartments in my brain help, because I have lots of ideas. But I couldn't tell you one failure in my life, because I've locked them away and they're gone.
Do you even see them as failures though? Because you've tried so much, you've been a pioneer, you've been an innovator.
I don't
so I think when things haven't worked,
everything is a success. If I wake up in the morning, it's a success.
Your mindset's phenomenal.
Who is it who used to tell me, who was that comedian from Manchester? And I used to say to him, look, the state of you, you know, you're drinking 10 pints a day, you're having Indians at 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, you should do something with your life. And he said, I do. He said, every morning I go like that. I said, oh, you work out? No. He said, if my elbows don't touch wood, I know I'm good.
No way. So that was his,
that was his world.
That's what worked.
So he was enjoying his life. And everyone's different. And what works for me doesn't work for other people. Some people grow up, some people want to be a nun. Some people want to be a doctor. It's a calling. I don't have any of that. I have fixed motivation on achieving certain goals. And it's a game. So I play business like I play sport. And I'm not great at anything. I'm good at everything. But I'm not great at anything, which is really tedious. But anyway, I'll get over it. I live with it. I play business like I play sport. I prepare diligently. I dedicate myself. I sacrifice around it. And I finish off with the most important criteria. I do the best I can possibly do.
Keeps coming back to that.
I don't leave anything on the table.
I was just going to say, no regrets.
And you know, no, I mean, last week I was in the nets getting ready for my new cricket season. You know, I play for the Essex over 70s. It's pretty but I love it. And then last year I played in the US Open pool. I was terrible. I got beat 9-1.
Yeah, but the one, I listened to something on the build-up on your podcast, that one that you got, you loved it.
I was so happy with myself. And now, since then, standard tournament table in my house, I play every day because I'm going to play the UK Open and I'm going to get slaughtered again. But on that day, I will be the best I can be. And that applies to business every single day. And lots of rules around business that make you successful. Be respectful to other people. Be hard, but don't be immovable.
Yeah. And we talked about a couple of people that are mutual friends of ours that have mutual respect for you. But the key person from a legacy building point of view is Eddie, your son. There's a dynamic there. Father myself to 2 daughters. So I'm trying to if they do what I do rather than what I say, I'll be pleased because my work ethic's good, my mindset's good. How much of that do you feel went in to Eddie and just seeing how you...
I disappoint him sometimes because the one thing about getting older is you always tell the truth. One is because you're too old to remember all the lies. And secondly is it's a lot easier to tell the truth. And I don't call Eddie, I call him my son occasionally, but most of the time I refer to him as my project. So from an early age, both him and his sister, Katie, have been projects. So I'm building something. A lot of people won't like that. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the type of people we are. You know, it's quite amusing to chat about it and it's quite, you know. But do they realise that when I didn't think Eddie was growing up to be the type of kid that I wanted, that I took him down the gym and we had a proper fight because I wanted to find out what was in him. And he dropped me twice in the second round.
Which you liked.
Which I loved. I loved. I mean, it was a bit painful, to be honest. But he's a project, and what I'm seeing now, where he's added his own piece of magic to a project, it's become something that is a legacy, is something that I'm proud of. My daughter's the same, an entirely different person. My daughter is much more of an academic than Eddie. But she has good values. You know, she has twin boys. It's her whole life, as family has always been my whole life. And that's how we were brought up. You know, someone made my sister cry. My dad would say, what are you doing sitting here? Go and sort it. And it would get sorted and they say, okay, now you have your dinner. You know, things like that give you a balance in life where I don't set myself impossible targets. You know, I'm childlike, I need to be successful. I breed off that success.
That keeps it simple, right?
Yeah. And nothing more simple than business.
Have you applied that to business? Because
All the time. I'm a boring chartered accountant. I've done 54 years as a fellow of the Institute. I think I was the youngest ever fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. I'm super smart. I like to give the impression I'm a barrow boy because it's quite a good image. People don't mess about with you. But it works for me, you know, and ultimately I am totally selfish. I spread it a little bit as though me and my family, but in the early days it was just me. I didn't give a monkey about anything, but I had goals that I wanted to achieve, and working class people, I always say to the fighters and the darts players and all those, first thing you do, you're going to make a load of money because I'm good at what I do. Second thing you do, you're going to pay off your mortgage. So if it all goes, you can look and say, especially in the case of boxers, you know, I've been damaged, because you're going to get damaged when you're a boxer. It's inevitable. You've got to be able to say, what did I get out of it? And then it's worth the price you're paying. For me, the same
super
thing.
good advice. And make sure you're prepared for that. The chartered accountant in you, I get, is sort of the business acumen and the sort of the bean counting, making money and knowing how to make money and protect money. But there's such a creativity with you. You know, creating the characters.
That's the big difference I found with accountants and entrepreneurial accountants.
Yes.
You know, I had never had a time in my life where I wasn't running 2 or 3 businesses at the same time from 12 or 13 years old. And sometimes it's just to make a few pounds, and other times it's to make a fortune. The rules are exactly the same. Just be the best you can be.
Yeah.
Don't expect more than you're capable of delivering, because you'll just disappoint yourself. So as superficial as possible, please, and you'll get away fine.
You've got this program coming up, going back to this creativity, from how you've changed the world of darts, snooker in the 80s, but the vision you've got now, and I guess the insight that will come from people being able to learn from you and Eddie and the empire you've built, if you like. Where did that come from? And I suppose the relevance of what you're doing now, being visible, social media, the way we consume our content. You've now immersed yourself into that. It's almost like a genius move at a time.
Well, I had no choice really, because the world's a changing place, and if you don't change with circumstance, then you're dead.
So that's my point about you're so relevant.
Well,
you keep
but
staying
you have
relevant.
to be like that, and you have to work. I mean, I don't understand all these things, computers and phones and all the thousands of things they can do. I have people that tell me, and I also have a brain myself where I slowly work things out. But the world is a changing place, and we're seeing it in our sports business at the moment. We had a board meeting yesterday, and I said, in 3 to 5 years' time, broadcast channels will be totally irrelevant. Let's plan for it now, because we'll have our own platforms, and we'll make programming for a select few rather than the gross image where you can't necessarily influence something. What you've got to be is in a position where people choose your product. So they choose where they want to go, whether they want to sit at home and watch it on telly, whether they want to buy a ticket in these troubled times for a lot of people with no money. So it puts different responsibilities on you to come up with a product where people can say, my plan's always, where are you going tonight? I'm going to see a matchroom show. I don't care if it's boxing, snooker, darts, pool, whatever, fishing, doesn't make any difference. But I want association of quality so someone knows that they're going to get value for money and they're going to get a top experience, which is going to enrich their life in as far as they'll go to work the next day and say, oh, I had a cracking night last night.
But that's what everyone used to do.
But they still
now
work.
sharing it as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is where you're captured.
Well, you can reach people a lot quicker. In the old days in the sports business, first year you did your brains, second year you broke even, third year you make a profit. Today's world, if you're smart enough, first year you make a profit. That's where
speed the process
and you've done that because you have a narrative that people want to listen to, and you have a channel where you can get that narrative out into the general market faster than you've ever done before.
Do you feel almost a sense of irony that you have worked with and promoted some amazing sports stars and personalities, and yet there's going to be such a huge amount of interest in this upcoming program that's about you and about how you've sort of, I think it's brilliant.
Listen,
because you were
I wasn't necessarily in favour of doing this because it's intrusive. I mean, number one, my wife and my daughter will not have anything to do with the show. It's intrusion in their world. They live a different world. They live a very private world, and they're out of Eddie and me, especially Eddie, it's like, you know, it's the cream on the cake for us because we're performers in our own way, bizarrely.
Hence the characters again,
And the
right?
characterisation and the narrative that evolves is relevant to a lot of people and, I hope, entertaining.
Hence, it's the Greatest Showman, right?
Well, the Greatest Showman describes what we do. I mean, again, people don't really understand so much about what we do in the sport, how passionate we are, because you could not. I mean, I thought I was a proper grafter, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, most of my life. Eddie's taken it to an extra couple of hours. You know, so he's grown up in an entirely different society to me. You know, he's grown up as a rich kid, which is one of the reasons why I didn't like him when he was 16, 17 years old. But the project comes through, the learning on the job has come through, and now he realises, you know, does an extra few million quid make any difference to Eddie? No, of course not. He's a showman. And what he's doing is he's fulfilling what he was always intended to be. And it ticks a lot of boxes.
It does, and I think there's a desire. Gen Z, 70% plus, I think, want to be an influencer. You know, there's a huge desire to be visible and be seen, and of course, social media.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that when Steve Davis was playing.
No.
They had to watch it through the BBC with you, and you made it something. But that's now a huge elevation, and I love the fact that you embrace it.
Yeah, well, you've got no choice. I mean, you've got to be really. My 8-year-old said to me the other day, he's completely about money. He says, Bazza, they all call me Bazza, how do you become a billionaire? And I said, well, what any granddad would say, you work hard at school, you give 100%, blah, 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 blah. And he went to me, yeah, I think I'm going to be an influencer. He's 8. Now, you know, in the same way as that people grow up wanting to be a footballer or a train driver or whatever, this is half a smart kid that decides he wants to be an influencer because he's seen the world and how it's evolved. For me to ignore it would be to ignore one of the great rules of life. Don't ever be irrelevant. You have to be relevant, and that involves moving with the times.
I love that. I love the fact that you recognise that, because there are so many parents and grandparents that will turn around and go, that's not a job, because it wasn't a job when you look at it. I mean, you're doing it now. You're doing it as you with the Greatest Showman.
My mum came home from a man who she used to clean his house. I was 12 years old, and she said to me, I know what you're going to do now. When you grow up, you're going to be a chartered accountant. And I said, really? What do they do? She said, I haven't got a clue. She said, but the man whose house I work in told me today that you never see a poor one. That one phrase triggered off a whole reaction in my brain.
I'll never be poor.
I'll never be poor. And even in the late 80s, when things were going really bad up and I owed millions of pounds everywhere, and like, you start to doubt yourself, which is a killer. It's a killer. It's like a 12-round fight when you've been battered. Do you see out the 12 rounds? Or do you say to the bloke in the corner, I've hurt my shoulder, pull me out? Now, that's the type of decisions you've got to make. And you look back over those years, you say, gee, I showed some balls then, you know. But then I always thought, because of the training and because of the past, I was never going to starve no matter what happened. I might have gone bust a few times, but as it turned out, good Lord smiled on me and certain things happened, and it would have been more of a compliment to fail, really.
It's interesting because I can tell that there's no room for failure, because you're constantly focused on, and probably 6 or 7 things at once. So if one thing's not going, you know when to pivot, you know when to drop. That's a skill there as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, you always give things, I mean, again, I've experimented with, I think I added up the other day, 16 or 17 sports.
Trying.
But you always got to give them you see, people that want to be rich quick seldom keep their money, because the attitude of a gambler means that eventually the house always wins. So you have to build this house with solid foundations, and it takes time, and you mustn't be too much in a rush. Someone said to me the other day, what would it be like, match would be like now, if Eddie had run it from day one? I said, we'd have either been the biggest entertainment company by a country mile in the world, or we'd have gone skint.
Yeah.
See, accountant comes in and balances the books, brings a little bit of sensibility to it. No one gets a prize for being brave, Brave fighters get beat up. You've got to be good. You've got to think it through and be technical about it.
It's brilliant.
So when we look at our business now, we're at a lovely crossroads because we're so, well, I don't know how big we are, but we're sizable.
Well, I think you built a unicorn ultimately.
Yeah, no. I formed Matchroom in 1982. I'd made a bit of money on I was chairman of a snooker hall group, which sold out. Somehow I ended up owning a third of it, and I made a lot of money in 1982. I was going to retire. I was 34. I made £1.5 million. I thought, where I come from, that's it, game over. £1.5 million. I'm going to play cricket, I'm going to go fishing, and I'm going to play golf every day. I did it for 6 weeks. I'm climbing up walls. I've got to go. So I went to my lawyer. I said, I'm going to form a company. I'm going to call it Matchroom. He said, where does the name come from? I said, me and Steve Davis used to play snooker in the Matchroom at Romford. So that's our lucky name. He said, how much equity? I said, 100 quid. I said, there's £60. I gave him £60 in cash. I said, 60% for me because I have to have control. I said, 20% for Eddie, he's 3 years old. 20% for Katie,
it's
she's
a proper
5
legacy
years old.
business.
Yeah. So that £100 business is north of £1 billion value. And if you don't feel you've done a good job and you don't feel happy, you've only got one person to blame because you're setting yourself the wrong standards. I'm proud every day I wake up, and I'm prouder at the end of the day because it means I've had another day.
You've been awarded OBE. There are so many things you can be proud of that I could name as achievements. What's the one achievement you're most proud of?
Well, it's trite to say, but still being alive. I mean, obviously I had a couple of heart attacks, and I've survived generational heart problems, and I've run marathons around the world and triathlons around the world, and I've tried everything without being particularly good at anything. But I've loved every second of every day. I'm more happy about my state of mind. And I think so much of it rests in the individual. There's a lot of weakness out there. With me, my big failure is I don't share my weaknesses with anybody, including wives and family. So if I've got something wrong, that's my problem as a man to sort out, and it stays as my problem.
But when you say share your weaknesses, there's a very confident, competent chap sitting here now. Those weaknesses are moments in time. There's something you need to solve. They're not behavioural because your mindset and your output's huge.
I don't solve them.
So what you're really saying is
I just get rid of them.
Yeah, but my point is you're not, the weakness that you call it is something's playing on your mind right now that's a little niggle that you need to sort out. And of course at times it's been probably a big deal to sort out, but you'll sort it and you won't burden someone else with that.
No, I won't ever discuss anything with anybody.
Even with Eddie?
No one.
Does he come to you? Does he have that where he'll come to you because of the relationship?
I think very occasionally, but we're very quite similar. And so he hates me calling him a project, but I said, actually, it's a benefit really, because I've brought you up how I want you to be brought up. And then we all had our own little bit of magic to it. And that's the secret that determines the difference between certain people. I don't know many people that we talk about sacrifices in life. I mean, I don't think you can't make a sacrifice big enough to take away the enjoyment of life. So sacrifice is just a way of doing your job a bit better than someone else. We're having a game. We're just having a game. We want to win. So if I'm doing something with you, whatever it can be, I want to win. And by the way, I'm a really good loser. When I lose, I always go, beaten by the better person. I haven't got a problem with that. In business, I've probably had
because it goes back to you'll give it everything. If someone beat you, respect.
I can't argue anything else.
Is there an element of that being lost in some sport? I'm going to name Formula One because, as far as I know, you're not part of that. There's an element of.
I hate motorsports. Boring. But, I went once. What a waste of time.
But there's an element of lack of respect for the sport side. It's become more entertainment. You managed to bring entertainment to sport.
Yeah, but it might be a bit of an overgeneralisation. You see, I like changing lives in an area that I can identify with. So, and Eddie will never have this because of his lifestyle and how he's been brought up. For me, to go up the other day and see 128 darts players in a room and say, boys, today is Christmas Day. We've done well together. And therefore, like Rockefeller said, every great deal ends up with both parties having a bit of bread in their mouth. So this is my day to share, the success we've had together, and I know I never undersell myself. I've always believed in myself so much so that it can upset people, but I just say what I think is the truth. Today we're having a share out. You've done your bit, I've done my bit. How do we taste the success? Money usually. So we just said, well, we're going to add another 35–40% to the prize money in 1 year, and you're all going to be multi-millionaires. Providing you work hard, and providing you win, and providing you sacrifice. And if you don't, the door's over there and I don't give a flying.
It's a win-win for both, though,
Totally,
right?
totally.
You're creating the
Yeah, but I don't want them around if they're not. You know, people say to me, oh, I've won my tour card, I should be on a salary. I said, no, you should win games. You don't need a salary. By the way, if you can't win games, you're no use to me either. So where's the sense in that? I'm not here to protect you. I'm here to give you the opportunity.
And
all I ever wanted in my life was an opportunity. I don't want favours. I don't want anything else.
You don't expect them either.
Give me a chance, and I'll show you what I can do. And if I come up second, I'm sure I'll get I'll get punished for it.
Yeah, but you'll take it. You won't whinge.
It's very no. Whinging.
I can't imagine you whinging.
It's a total waste of time. What, feeling sorry for yourself? Total waste of time. Get off your go and do something.
Yeah.
It's a bit simplistic, and sometimes, you know, I probably don't have enough understanding of mental health issues and things like that because I've never been like that. So it's very difficult for me to identify, because bad days are bad days and they're followed by good days, and it's my job to make them like that.
But you've got your own way doing it. Going back to that sort of room you've locked the door on, and you keep putting the things in there, but you know you're not dwelling, you're not thinking on it, which I do think
I don't revisit anything. I've already absorbed the learning of it. I know that. But I don't revisit anything that's going to give me pain, because that's not part of my life. And it probably does make me very superficial, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because it gives me a happy life. And all I'm interested in really is being happy. I mean, now, world's changing, we're all getting older and all that, and I'm taking a lot of pleasure in doing other things outside, which I never dreamed I'd do, you know. I'm starting a foundation, I'm going to put all my money in that, and who cares?
So there's a part of you that's giving back.
Yeah, but it's just a nice thing to say thanks a lot. I've had a great run. I've had a brilliant run. If I go under a bus outside here today, I got no complaints whatsoever.
I can tell that about you.
Yeah.
I love that.
But I'd like it not to happen if you don't mind.
And you're living your life to make sure of that.
Yeah, I'm trying all the time. But Father Time takes its toll on everybody. It don't make any difference. But I think the secret actually is really basic, is sleep when your body tells you to sleep. Wake up when your body tells you to wake up.
Yeah.
When you're awake, maximise every minute. And when you've had enough, stop.
There's so much I have learned from talking to you now, and that other people watching, listening can. And I think extraordinary stories, your story is extraordinary. There are so many stories you must have about the journey and with people. Is there one that springs to mind? If you were just, it sort of tipped you upside down and everything spilled out and it was like, that's a story that makes me smile.
The one I always try and tell people was to try and understand the flexibility that exists in everyone's brain, the adjustment that it takes to live a life. And sometimes people give up and sometimes people push on. Very much a personality-driven thing, and how you were brought up. I think our background's so important to us. I remember when I had this chunk of money in '82 and I had to spend it, because if I didn't spend it, I couldn't see myself going back to work.
So you made life difficult for yourself?
So I spent it all. And then I started Matchroom and I said, right, now I'm starting again. But I had a lot of assets behind me, you know, in those days.
So you invested it, spending it?
Yeah, I bought a forest in Scotland. I bought number 3 Grosvenor Street on the corner of Bond Street. I bought my beautiful house that I've lived in, which is now our head office. Which, all these things were done, but that doesn't really matter. But then I decided what I wanted to do. And when you make a commitment, as I say, I have got these blinkered approaches, which makes me quite shallow.
It works for you though.
But it works. But I saw the future in as far as my previous job, I was in the fashion business and I was doing shows all over America and things like that. It was quite a wild time. But I saw ESPN on TV and I thought, do you know, why haven't we got this in England? It's back, you know, hour by hour sports
dedicated
coverage.
Sports channel.
So it's got to come. So then I thought, well, I'm going to be a sports promoter somehow or the other, because I was managing snooker players, but I wanted to do boxing. I only do sports I'm passionate about. If I don't like a sport, no amount of money gets me in that sport. I don't like Formula 1. Listen, the drivers are brave and everything. Total respect. Not for me. I don't like tennis. My wife plays tennis twice a week. It's not for me. And in my life, what is for me is what I do. So it's black and white. I'm not going to waste my time on something I don't like. So I'm not going to ever promote a sport that I'm not passionate about. So I started doing boxing shows. I started doing pool shows. You know, I used to play a bit of pool in the States for money years ago. Stuff like that. And I loved it. It's not like going to work. But it was a total disaster. And from 1982 to 1988, I lost everything. Oh, everything. I had to sell my forest. I had to sell properties just to survive. Every show was losing money because there was no TV. If you got 15 minutes on grandstand, you'd done well. I needed hours to sell the story. If you're going to be a storyteller, you don't give him 2 pages and a blank piece of paper. You've got to give him a book. And it was harder. It was getting harder. And it was all inside me, you know. So I won't talk to anybody about it. It's no one else's business, my job. But it was getting really tough. So the story comes. It's 88. Now I've gone from being really good, you know, good salaries, good money, plenty of capital. I've gone to owing the bank millions and millions of pounds. No future, nothing. And it's 88 and the world is changing, but slowly, too slowly to save me. And you begin to question yourself. So you have these barriers. So I needed a sponsor in January 89 for the European Snooker League. It was £300,000 that I didn't have. But I'm committed to doing the event, and my pride will mean if you shake hands with Barry Hearn, you go to any bank in the world. It's the best guarantee you'll ever have. That's my reputation. So I go and see Trust House 40, a hotel group, on Christmas Eve, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Christmas Eve. I get out of a train at Slough Station and it starts to snow. I look like a character out of a Dickens novel. And I walk up to see this guy who's the chief executive, who's funny enough, his name was Hearn, Alan Hearn, no relation. And he looked at me and I said, right, Mr. Hearn, you've got 5 minutes here? Of course I have. He said, what can I do for you? I said, well, and I try and pitch this snooker event. The worst pitch in my life. And I can only identify something with a fighter that had been smashed to bits for 10 rounds and really was thinking about, I'm not sure this is for me. So I gave the worst pitch ever, and he finished off and he said, well, very interesting, but we've got no money. That was the end. That was the end of me. The story that we're talking about before would never have happened. And I thought myself, as always, try and go out with a bit of class. So I just said, well, Mr. Hearn, I appreciate your problems. Let me wish you and your family a happy Christmas, a great New Year. Catch up sometime. As I went to walk out the door, he said, but I've got hotel rooms. And I turned around and said, what does that mean? He said, well, I've got no money. I said, no, I understood that bit. He said, but I've got the best hotels in the world. So he had Sandy Lane in Barbados, Georges V in Paris, Waldorf in London. He said, I will give you £300,000 of hotel rooms, not cash, in exchange for that sponsorship, a barter deal. So we shook hands. I knew the deal was done. And by the time I'd walked from his office to Slough Station, I'd sold the lot to friends of mine in the travel business at a 40% discount. And I took 180 grand in cash. Not the biggest deal I've ever done.
But it saved you.
But the best deal. And not only did it save my business, it saved me. Because I suddenly had my faith in myself restored that no matter what the world throws at you, you can cope. There is a way, always a way, but it's up to you to find it.
And you had the people around you and the nuance to kind of go, actually, I know what to do here. Yeah. I know how to leverage this.
Yeah. One of those great big phones. You remember those great big phones?
Yeah,
hello?
Pull the air out.
How'd you like to go to Sandy Lane, Barbados on a 40% discount? Cash.
But you came alive again from the beaten fighter.
Yeah.
That was leaving with dignity. To then, I bet that evening must have been.
I saw an opening.
Yes.
And that was it. But they're always there if you don't give up.
You are so inspirational to talk with, Barry. Thank you for making time.
It's a pleasure.
To talk with me today. I've loved it. I hope you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely.